Before you swipe away, imagine a tiny Lincoln penny sitting in your pocket, worth more than a brand new car, more than a house down payment, more than most people will ever save in their lifetime. This is not a rumor, this is real U.S. history hiding in plain sight, and the craziest part, millions of people have handled these pennies without ever knowing what they were touching today. You are about to discover the top 5 most valuable Lincoln penny coins ever found, rare mintages, historic mistakes, wartime accidents, and coins so scarce collectors chase them for decades. Imagine holding in your hand a small copper-colored coin minted in 2015, a year that seemed ordinary to most people, but for collectors opened a brand new chapter in the evolving story of the Lincoln cent. And today we are going deep into a world where tiny design elements, hidden minting decisions, backstage struggles at the United States Mint, and production details you never hear about all collide to create the full story of the 2015 Lincoln penny, a coin that millions of Americans used every single day without ever realizing the incredible history behind it. And in this video we unravel every thread of its creation, from the origins of the Lincoln cent in 1909 to the modern zinc-based penny still carrying Abraham Lincoln's portrait more than a century later, and we explore how the 2015 version fits into the long line of changes, challenges, controversies, and innovations that shaped one of the most iconic coins in America. Starting with why the Mint continued producing the penny, even when economists called it obsolete, and why 2015 became a key year in understanding the modern life of the Lincoln cent, because the story of this coin goes far beyond its face value. It is a window into American economics, metal markets, minting, technology, and national identity. And to understand the 2015 penny, we first need to trace how the Lincoln cent became what it is today, beginning in 1909. When the United States Mint released the very first coin in circulation to feature a real, historical person and not just a symbolic figure, a bold decision for its time, driven by the upcoming centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth and designed by Victor David Brenner, whose initials sparked controversy when the Mint removed the VDB from the reverse shortly after release. And that moment in 1909 kicked off more than a century of evolution for the penny, from bronze to steel during wartime, then back to bronze, and finally to the zinc-based structure introduced in 1982, which still defines the Lincoln penny today, including the 2015 version. And by the time we reach the 21st century, the Lincoln cent had already survived debates about discontinuing it, rising production costs, and economic arguments questioning its usefulness. Yet the Mint continued striking billions every year, including the massive runs of 2015, because small change still plays a role in commerce, public demand remains strong, and the penny is deeply rooted in American culture and superstition. And as we step into the details of the 2015 penny, we enter the era of the shield reverse design, introduced in 2010 after the one-year run of the 2009 bicentennial designs, with the shield symbolizing federal unity and referencing the Union shield carried during the Civil War, connecting directly to Lincoln's legacy. And the 2015 penny carries this symbolism proudly on its reverse, with the great Union shield supporting the inscription 1 cent, and the banner across its field holding the motto E pluribus unum, while on the obverse we still see the modern rendition of Lincoln's bust, first sculpted by Brenner, but updated over the decades to refine the relief details while preserving the classic profile. And when we examine the minting process behind the 2015 penny, we see how advances in technology like laser-engraved dies, digital sculpting, and refined copper plating techniques allowed the Mint to maintain consistency, even when producing more than 8 billion pennies in a single year. Each of those coins, no matter how small, follows a long chain of production, beginning with the zinc blanks manufactured to exacting tolerances, then coated with thin layers of copper to achieve the iconic red tone, and finally struck under immense pressure that imprints the famous portrait on one side and the Union shield on the other. And in 2015, both the Philadelphia and Denver mints were heavily involved in producing these coins, while the San Francisco Mint focused mainly on proof versions. offering sharply detailed mirror-like strikes for collectors, and the differences between business strike pennies and proof coins gives us another layer of history to explore. Because proof coins are not meant for circulation, but serve as premium collector pieces meticulously polished and struck multiple times, creating a beautiful crisp finish that highlights every line of Lincoln's portrait and the shield design. And these proof pennies from 2015 tell a story of craftsmanship and tradition, preserved even as the mint continues evolving technologically. And while many people think all modern pennies are identical, collectors know that each year brings subtle variations. Die characteristics, mint mark positioning, plankett quality, and even small errors that can transform an ordinary coin into a treasure. And the 2015 penny is no exception, because error collectors have documented examples of off-center strikes, die cracks, plating bubbles, and misaligned dies. And these specimens, though rare compared to the billions of normal coins, give the 2015 penny a special place in the modern error collecting community. And when we zoom out again to look at the broader economic context of 2015, we see the cost of producing a penny continuing to exceed its face value, meaning the government spent more than 1 cent to make every 1-cent coin, and this sparked renewed debate about discontinuing the penny altogether. But despite this economic pressure, the public continued to support keeping the coin, and Congress kept the penny in production, and 2015 became another chapter in this ongoing discussion, showing how tradition, sentiment, and national identity can outweigh pure economic calculations. And now we travel further into the deeper layers of the coin's symbolism, the reason Abraham Lincoln remains on this denomination, the connection between his leadership during the nation's most turbulent years and the penny, which is the first coin that many children encounter, teaching them the basics of money and savings and reinforcing Lincoln's role in American memory. And when we analyze the design elements of the 2015 penny, the sculpted hair details on Lincoln's portrait, the curvature of the shoulder, the placement of the date and mint marks, and the precise layout of the shield on the reverse, we see how modern engravers preserved Brenner's original inspiration while updating the style for 21st century aesthetics. And this blending of past and present makes the 2015 penny a fascinating subject for collectors, historians, and everyday Americans, because it captures more than 100 years of design tradition in a coin that weighs only 2.5 grams and is often overlooked in daily life. And yet the story of the penny is also a story of American industry, metal supply chains, technological innovation, and economic resilience, as the mint continually adapted to changing market prices and public expectations. And 2015 stands as a representative year in this modern era where the penny remains both a practical object and a cultural symbol. And in exploring this coin, we discover how each minted year, including 2015, becomes a snapshot of American history, reflecting economic conditions, political debates, technological progress, and ongoing national conversations about the future of small currency. And as we continue unfolding the story of the 2015 Lincoln penny, we see how even the smallest coin has a powerful legacy, bridging past and present, linking the Lincoln Memorial era that lasted from 1959 to 2008 with the new shield reverse era, and representing how American coinage evolves with time without losing its origins. And the 2015 penny therefore becomes more than a piece of metal. It becomes a living archive of American history, everyday life, national symbolism, and evolving minting practices. And this script can continue expanding into specific chapters on plankett preparation, die engraving, coin distribution, error varieties, collector impact, mint statistics, and the rising cost controversy, allowing your full 2-hour video to explore each of these subjects in depth while delivering a rich, captivating narrative that keeps viewers engaged from introduction to conclusion. Imagine holding a tiny piece of metal that silently witnessed the countdown to a new millennium, a coin struck in the last year of the 20th century, a coin that millions of people pass by every day without realizing the incredible story carries. The 1999 Lincoln penny is more than copper-plated zinc, more than a common cent, and far more than a simple piece of pocket change. It is the final whisper of an era the closing chapter of a century that redefined America, the end of a 100-year journey shaped by wars, innovation, technology, cultural revolutions, and the rise of a global superpower. And this little coin, minted by the millions, became a time capsule of that moment in history. And today we dive deep into its world, uncovering its creation, its purpose, its hidden varieties, its production secrets, and the legacy it holds in the vast universe of American numismatics. As we step back into the story of the 1999 Lincoln cent, we must first understand what the Lincoln penny represented. By the time this year arrived, since its debut in 1909, the Lincoln cent had served as a tribute to Abraham Lincoln, becoming the first circulating U.S. coin to feature a real historical person. The design, crafted by Victor David Brenner, stood as a symbol of national unity and respect, and through decades of American evolution, the Lincoln penny changed subtly, but carried the same powerful portrait that millions of citizens recognized as the face of honesty, leadership, and endurance. And by the late 1990s, the coin had become an iconic piece of the American identity, used daily by nearly every household and found in pockets, jars, car cuffholders, and cash registers across the nation. We enter 1999, a year electrified with anticipation and uncertainty. The world was preparing for Y2K fears. Computers were predicted by some to malfunction on New Year's Eve. Debates raged about what the new millennium would bring. Optimism, blended with anxiety, technology was exploding with new innovations. The internet was transforming how people connected and communicated. Music, fashion, and culture were evolving at lightning speed, and American society stood at the crossroads of an old century and a new digital frontier. In this vibrant atmosphere, the United States Mint continued its mission of producing billions of circulating coins for commerce, carrying forward its century-long tradition of precision and craftsmanship. 1999 Lincoln penny was minted at two primary locations: the Philadelphia Mint, which produced coins without a mint mark, and the Denver Mint, which carried the D-mint mark on the obverse. Each mint used advanced coining technology, but the core design remained faithful to long-standing tradition, featuring Lincoln on the obverse facing right with a calm, stoic, and reflective gaze symbolizing continuous American progress, and on the reverse the classic Lincoln Memorial design crafted by Frank Gasparo, which had been used since 1959, showing the grand neoclassical structure that honored the 16th president. And if you looked closely, you could even see the faint representation of the statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, a detail that always fascinated collectors. Through to 1999, billions of Lincoln cents flowed from massive presses, stamping copper-plated zinc blanks with precision. Each blank was composed of 97.5% zinc and only 2.5% copper, giving the coin its iconic reddish tone, but also marking it as part of the post-1980 to composition era. This change from bronze to copper-plated zinc had helped the mint cut production costs and keep pace with fluctuating metal prices, and by 1999 the mint had mastered this composition, creating coins with smooth, consistent surfaces and a bright, uniform shine when freshly struck. In the process of this enormous production, however, something else began to emerge: subtle varieties, interesting strikes, and minting anomalies that would later attract the keen eyes of coin collectors. Some 1999 pennies displayed minor misalignments, die cracks, or plating bubbles, small imperfections created as the dies aged or the metal reacted to pressure, and though the majority of these variations were not rare, they formed an important part of the story, showing how a massive industrial system still created pieces with individual character and personality. Another important aspect in the history of the 1999 penny involves its position within the timeline of the Lincoln Memorial reverse design. This reverse, which had been used since 1959, was approaching the end of its 50-year career. Just 10 years later, in 2009, the Mint would introduce a new reverse to celebrate the bicentennial of Lincoln's birth, and then transition to the Union Shield reverse in 2010. And when we look back from that perspective, the 1999 penny becomes part of the final generation of Lincoln Memorial coins, a member of the closing chapters of a long artistic era in American coinage. Collectors today view the 1999 penny through a unique lens because it is both very modern And historically significant, it belongs to a decade where coins were mass-produced in huge numbers, yet it also stands on the threshold of a monumental change. It is common in circulation, yet special in its timing. It is familiar, yet meaningful. And this contrast has made the 1999 penny a coin often used to teach the importance of transitional years in numismatics. Condition of the coin plays a huge role in its collectability. Well-preserved examples with brilliant luster, fully struck details, clean surfaces, and sharp edges can draw attention of professional graders and hobbyists alike, especially those in mint state 67 or higher, which represent the best of the best from each mint. These coins reflect the precision of the minting process, demonstrating smooth fields, clear lettering, defined hair strands on Lincoln's portrait, and crisp structural lines on the Lincoln Memorial itself. And for collectors who search rolls and bags of circulated coins, finding such a gem can be a thrilling experience, a reminder that treasures still live in everyday change. Beyond condition, the historical context adds even more weight to the 1999 cent story. This was the final year before the U.S. Mint began the 50 state quarters program, one of the largest and most influential coin programs in American history. And during this time, national interest in coins suddenly spiked. Millions of people began saving state quarters, and this wave of excitement indirectly renewed curiosity about other circulating coins, including the Lincoln cent. The 1999 penny therefore stands at the door of this new era and is often collected alongside early state quarters to represent the last standard year before the explosion of public enthusiasm for coin collecting swept the country. To truly appreciate the importance of the 1999 Lincoln cent, we should step deeper into the historical forces shaping America. At the end of the 1990s, innovators were racing to push the boundaries of digital technology. Mobile phones were evolving, home computers were becoming common, and the internet was connecting millions of people in ways previously unimaginable. And as technology surged forward, the mint who adopted increasingly advanced equipment, improved die-making processes, refined quality control enhancements, and digital engraving tools. And these innovations contributed to the sharpness, consistency, and clean design of coins produced in 1999. Another layer of meaning comes from the coin's symbolic ties to Lincoln himself. The 16th president stood as a guiding figure during America's most difficult internal crisis, the Civil War, and his legacy remained a source of national unity, wisdom, and hope during the uncertainties of the late 1990s. With dramatic global changes unfolding, American influence expanding, and the world preparing for the next century, many people saw Lincoln as a timeless figure whose leadership could be looked upon as a reminder of stability and integrity. And his portrait on the penny continued to embody those values. Even as America entered a period of rapid modernization, cults today value the story of the 1999 penny not because it is rare, but because it represents a moment that blended tradition and transformation, minting heritage and new century anticipation. And for viewers of this documentary, the journey through the coin's creation, its composition, its design, its varieties, its cultural context, and its deeper symbolism reveals why a simple 1-cent piece carries a story far larger than its size, and why even the most common coin can become a priceless piece of history when we understand the world that shaped it, from the rumble of the minting presses to the careful engravings that defined its features, from the massive distribution networks that delivered it into daily circulation to the millions of hands it passed through. The 1999 Lincoln penny lived a busy life, traveling across grocery stores, schools, workplaces, gas stations, and family homes, becoming part of the fabric of everyday American life. And even today, when found in a drawer, a coin jar, or a freshly opened roll, it continues to reflect the story of its time, the end of a century, the transition to a new millennium, and the continuation of a legacy more than 100 years in the making. 1999 penny is a storyteller, and its tale is far from over as long as collectors, historians, and everyday people continue to examine these coins. The legacy of this tiny piece of metal will remain alive, reminding us that history is not always locked in museums. Sometimes it rests quietly in our pockets, waiting for someone curious enough to see the world etched into its surface. Imagine holding a small copper-colored coin in your hand, a coin so common that millions of people walk past it every single day without realizing that within its tiny frame lies a hidden story of American history, craftsmanship, national identity, and a mystery that has intrigued collectors for decades. And this is the journey we are about to take with the 1984 Lincoln penny, a coin born in a time when America was reshaping its economy, facing new technological frontiers, and redefining the role of the mint itself. As the country moved deeper into the 1980s, the United States Mint was operating under intense pressure and shifting priorities, and every minor adjustment in production, every redesign, every change in metal composition told a deeper story about the nation's values and challenges. The 1984 Lincoln penny stands closely tied to this era because it arrived only a short time after one of the biggest transformations in penny history: the switch from the traditional bronze alloy to the new copper-plated zinc composition introduced in 1982, and by 1984 the mint was still perfecting the process, dealing with the unexpected issues the new metal brought, and experimenting with solutions that would define the quality and durability of Lincoln cents for years to come. And while millions of these coins were struck across the Philadelphia and Denver mints, one particular discovery would ignite the attention of collectors everywhere: the famous 1984 double-ear variety, a striking mint error that revealed how the pressure of mass production combined with new technological demands allowed remarkable and accidental creations to slip through undetected, turning an everyday penny into one of the most recognizable and sought-after modern mint varieties. But to understand the full story, we must travel back to the origins of the Lincoln cent, created in 1909 to mark the centennial of President Abraham Lincoln's birth, a time when America wanted a coin that expressed respect, unity, and a shift toward more artistic coinage. And as decades passed, each year of the penny's production mirrored the nation's evolution from world wars to economic booms to cultural change, and how by 1984 the nation's oldest continuously circulating coin carried both historical weight and modern challenges. And every element of the 1984 penny, from the copper-plated zinc core to the crisp portrait of Lincoln to the subtle engraver's marks, carries meaning born from years of innovation, mistakes, triumphs, and political decisions. This coin becomes more than a small piece of metal. It becomes a snapshot of America in the 1980s, a time of technological advancement, growing global influence, and intensified efficiency within the mint. Now imagine the massive production floors where billions of coins were struck, the rhythmic pounding of presses, the constant evaluation of blanks and plankets, the critical struggle to maintain quality while balancing new cost-saving measures. And then imagine how in this precise environment a few coins rolled out with that distinctive doubled ear, making them pieces of numismatic legend and the kind of treasure that collectors dream about. And by the time you finish exploring the full history of the 1984 Lincoln penny, the economic backdrop, the minting process, challenges, the famous doubled ear variety, the role of the mint, the global copper crisis of earlier years, and its long-term effects, you will understand that this tiny coin is in fact a powerful storyteller of American industry and identity, a piece that teaches us that even the smallest items in everyday life may hold vast and captivating histories. And today we begin unfolding that entire story, from the first spark of its creation to every moment that shaped its existence and influenced its value in the world of collectors. Imagine holding a tiny copper coin so ordinary that millions walk past it every single day without giving it a second glance, yet inside that single coin lies a story of American determination, a story of minting evolution, a story of economic change, political pressure, and the quiet strength of a design that has survived more than a century and continues to shape the identity of U.S. currency. And today we dive into one of the most overlooked yet historically loaded pieces in American pocket change, the 1979 Lincoln penny, a coin born during a decade of turbulence, inflation, challenges, economic uncertainty, and a mint that was preparing for a future could barely predict. And this single cent became a quiet witness to it all, welcoming you to a deep historic journey into the creation, impact, and lasting significance of the 1979 Lincoln penny. To understand this coin, you must go back to the roots of the Lincoln cent itself, a design that began in 1909 when the United States Mint made a bold move, replacing the Indian head cent with the image of Abraham Lincoln, the first time a real historical figure ever appeared on a regular U.S. coin. This shift represented far more than a new design. It symbolized national respect, a tribute to the men who preserved the Union during its darkest hour, and it marked the beginning of a new era where American money would reflect American identity. And by the time we reached 1979, this coin had already carried decades worth of changes to its composition, its production, and its place in American life. The year 1979 itself was a moment of tension and transformation across the United States. Inflation continued to rise, the cost of living grew rapidly, and conversations about the future of small denomination coins flooded government offices as economists debated whether the penny should continue to exist. Amid rising production costs, the mint responded with innovation, efficiency, and an increasing focus on quality control, adjusting machinery, expanding facilities, and preparing for potential shifts in metal composition. Though the copper alloy used in 1979 still maintained the classic 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc mix that had been standard since before World War II, this composition was only a few years away from a dramatic change that would redefine the penny in the 1980s. While the 1979 Lincoln penny might seem like an everyday coin, the story becomes far more fascinating when we look closer at the minting process that unfolded in Philadelphia, Denver, and the San Francisco Mint. Each location contributed its own flavor to the year's production. Philadelphia produced more than 6 billion pennies without using a mint mark. Denver added its own massive output, identified by the small d beneath the date, and the San Francisco Mint, which had already shifted most of its production toward proof coinage, created mirror finish proof pennies that collectors still treasure today. These proof coins were crafted with remarkable clarity, sharpness, and reflective surfaces that stand in high contrast to the business strike coins circulating throughout the nation. And the minting numbers. The 1979 penny carries subtle characteristics that make it uniquely special for collectors. Variations in die wear, slight differences in strike strength, and the natural aging of copper have created countless appearances among surviving coins. From bright red copper luster to deep brown tones that reflect decades in circulation, the natural oxidation of the alloy makes every older penny a miniature piece of art shaped by time and environment. And when collectors examine these coins, they often dive deep into the nuances of grading red, brown, and brown categories, along with the precision of the design details. Struck by the decisive and more intriguing are the error coins of 1979, which bring excitement and value to the collecting world. The strikes off center strikes, doubled dies, and clipped plankets. Each error is a frozen moment in the minting process, a rare glimpse into the machinery and pressure behind the scenes, and collectors hunt for these because they transform an ordinary 1-cent piece into a story of mechanical timing and minting imperfection that elevates value. And rarefied design of the 1979 penny remains loyal to Victor David Brenner's original work, the familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln facing right, symbolizing strength, leadership, and resolve, while the reverse still displayed the Lincoln Memorial, an icon that had represented national unity since it replaced the wheat ears design in 1959. Within the tiny details of the memorial, the seated statue of Lincoln can be seen, a subtle artistic achievement that continues to impress those who zoom in with magnification. This dual representation of the president on both sides of the coin created a unique feature unmatched in American coinage and strengthened its cultural identity. As the economy of the late 1970s struggled with inflation, discussions in Washington grew louder about the rising cost of copper and the growing difficulty of producing a 1-cent coin for less than its face value, echoing debates that still continue today. Though 1979 maintained the traditional copper formula. The looming change reflected the financial challenges of the era. And by 1982, the copper-heavy penny would transition toward a predominantly zinc composition. Shift that makes every pre-1982 penny, including those from 1979, historically significant, not only as a piece of currency but as a representation of an era when metal content mattered deeply to the nation's economy. Collectors today value the 1979 penny, not for extraordinary rarity, but for the story it tells, the bridge it forms between the old copper age and the coming changes of the 1980s, and the insight it provides into American minting history. When you hold a 1979 penny, you are holding a moment of economic tension, political change, minting evolution, and cultural continuity, a reminder that even the smallest piece of American money carries a legacy far greater than its face value. As we take you deeper into this narrative, for the next 2 hours you will explore the crafting techniques, the machinery, the artistry, the metal analysis, the minting variations, the era diagnostics, the collector market, and the historical context that shaped the 1979 Lincoln penny. You will see how this tiny coin reflects an entire chapter of American life, how it captures the spirit of the times, and how it continues to spark the fascination of collectors, historians, and everyday people who find unexpected history in the change jingling in their pockets. Imagine holding a small copper coin in your hand, a coin so ordinary that millions of people walked past it without a second glance. Yet behind that simple Lincoln penny from 1976 hides a story that stretches across decades of American history, political transformation, economic pressure, and the deep symbolism of a nation preparing to celebrate its bicentennial. And if you stay with me today, you are about to discover why this tiny piece of metal struck in that unforgettable year carries a story far larger than its size, a story of design, legacy, minting evolution, rising copper prices, and a nation honoring 200 years of independence. And all of it wrapped inside the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln that Americans had grown up seeing every single day. Now let us travel back into the heart of 1976, a year filled with celebrations, patriotic music, parades, and fireworks, because America was turning 200 years old, and the entire nation was electrified with bicentennial pride. Special quarters, halves, and dollars were redesigned with bold commemorative artwork, but one coin remained unchanged, the humble Lincoln cent, and many people wondered why the United States Mint did not create a special bicentennial penny. But the answer reaches deep into the long tradition behind the Lincoln cent and the powerful symbolism that had been shaping the coin since 1909, when it first entered circulation as the first ever U.S. coin to feature a real person on its face. Abraham Lincoln had become more than just a president on a coin. He had grown into a national symbol of unity, humility, and stability. So by 1976, the Mint believed that the Lincoln cent should stay exactly as it was, representing constancy during a time of celebration. The regular 1976 Lincoln penny kept the same obverse portrait designed by Victor David Brenner, that iconic profile of Lincoln with sharp features and dignified expression, a design so timeless that it had survived multiple eras, wars, recessions, artistic trends, and political changes. On the reverse, the familiar Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959, continued to stand strong, designed by Frank Gasparo and chosen to honor the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The memorial reverse had already been a part of American daily life for 17 years leading up to 1976, and by then millions of Americans could identify the coin instantly, even without looking closely. The 1976 Lincoln cents were struck at 3 facilities: the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint, though San Francisco continued striking proof coins rather than circulation issues. The composition of the coin remained the classic bronze blend of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, a combination that had been in use since 1962. This high copper content gave the penny a deep, rich color that collectors still admire, and over time, these coins developed beautiful natural toning shades of red, brown, and even chocolate. brown depending on their environment. But behind the scenes in 1976, the mint was facing increasing pressure because copper prices were rising sharply. By the mid-1970s, the cost of producing a penny was approaching the face value itself, and there were serious discussions happening inside the Treasury Department about potentially changing the composition or even eliminating the penny altogether. While no immediate changes came that year, the financial pressure laid the groundwork for the dramatic shift that would come in 1982 when the mint transitioned to the copper-plated zinc cents we use today in 1976. However, the penny remained a small but iconic work of bronze art, with a legacy stretching back over half a century. As the nation celebrated its 200th year, the 1976 penny flowed through stores, diners, highways, gas stations, and pockets of millions of Americans every single day, becoming a silent witness to the way ordinary people lived, breathed, and celebrated the bicentennial. Though it was not given a special commemorative design like the quarter, half, and dollar, the Lincoln penny became something else. An anchor to the nation's continuity, a reminder that even while new designs honored fireworks and Independence era imagery, the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln remained steady. Millions of bicentennial souvenirs were produced, from plates to posters to flags to medallions, and yet the Lincoln penny quietly remained the most circulated physical reminder of the nation's long journey through time, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement, from industrial expansion to Cold War tensions, and from the early 20th century to 1976. The penny carried the portrait of a leader whose legacy defined unity, justice, and perseverance. Now, if we step into the specific details of the 1976 Lincoln cent, we find that Philadelphia coins carried no mint mark, while Denver coins bore the small d under the date, and San Francisco proof coins featured the elegant S mint mark. These proofs, struck on high-quality plankets, had deep mirror surfaces and frosted devices, giving them a stunning cameo effect, the type of finish collectors deeply value. When examining surviving examples today, some 1976 cents appear with full mint red coloration, a bright fiery copper surface that can remain preserved for decades if stored properly. These red coins are the most desirable to collectors, since copper oxidizes naturally over time, turning from red to red-brown, and eventually to brown. The survival of a glowing red penny from 1976 is proof of exceptional care and preservation. The year also saw slight differences in strike quality. Depending on the mint, Philadelphia coins tended to have softer details in Lincoln's beard and hair, while Denver coins were often sharper thanks to improved striking pressure and planket quality. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the 1976 penny is the role it plays in bicentennial coin collections. Even though it was not a commemorative design, many collectors include it in bicentennial sets because it represents the everyday coinage issued in that historic year. A year of national pride, historical reflection, and cultural transformation. The penny, therefore, becomes part of the larger story of 1976, linked to the special quarter, half, and dollar designs that receive nationwide attention. And when we widen our view even further, the 1976 Lincoln cent belongs to one of the longest-running coin series in United States history. The Lincoln cent has been produced continuously since 1909, making it over a century old, and within that span, the 1976 issue sits in a unique period between the 1959 introduction of the memorial reverse and the major transitions of the 1980s and 1990s. Each period left its imprint on the penny, and 1976 stands as a calm midpoint, a year of celebration externally and quiet consistency internally, as the mint maintained traditional production methods while preparing for future changes. Collectors today still seek out high-grade examples of the 1976 penny, especially in MS66 and MS67 grades, where the coin displays strong luster, minimal contact marks, and full strike details. These grades can command premium value, particularly for red-designated coins, by grading services like PCGS and NGC, though the majority of circulated pennies from this year hold mostly sentimental, historical, and educational value. For those exploring varieties, the 1976 Lincoln cent does not have major dramatic varieties like double dies or repunched mint marks in other years, but slight die polishing lines, minor strikes, and subtle plankett differences may interest advanced collectors. However, the true beauty of this coin is not in rare varieties or dramatic errors, but in its story, the story of a coin born in the year America celebrated the centuries of independence, the story of a design that had already endured for generations. The story of a minting process caught between tradition and upcoming change, and the story of the ordinary penny that helped carry the legacy of Abraham Lincoln through 1976 without interruption. As we explored deeper into the symbolic weight of this coin, we recognize that Lincoln himself represents the American ideal of perseverance through hardship and rising beyond division, and the fact that his portrait was chosen to remain unchanged during such a monumental year speaks volumes. The penny was steady, familiar, reliable, and everyday reminder of history living in the present, and so the 1976 Lincoln cent becomes more than metal. It becomes memory, sentiment, history, and continuity wrapped into a small piece of bronze that countless hands exchanged without ever realizing the magnitude of the moment they were living through. Historians, numismatists, and casual collectors alike can look at this coin today and understand that it is a chapter in the ongoing story of American coinage, reflecting the tension between past and future, between celebration and everyday life, and between national transformation and personal experience. As this to our journey continues, we dive deeper into the background of the Lincoln cent, its introduction in 1909, its transition from wheat ears to the memorial design, the artistic intentions behind Brenner's obverse, the political influence shaping early 20th century coinage, and the wider cultural impact of putting Lincoln on money. For the first time, we travel through the metal shortages of World War II, the steel cent experiment of 1943, the redirection of minting policy through changing administrations, and the economic turbulence of the 1970s that made copper a challenging metal to maintain in penny production. All of these moments lead us directly into the context of 1976, giving clarity to why the penny remained the same even when other denominations were adorned with bicentennial art. And by the time we reach the end of this coin's journey, we realize that the 1976 Lincoln penny is one of the most historically layered cents of the mid-20th century, a small everyday artifact born in a monumental American year carrying quiet symbolism